has finished. And afterwards, we want to invite you to continue the conversation at the bar. Now introduce our first speaker.
I would like to introduce the Clusterduck Collective, an interdisciplinary collective working in the fields of new media studies, design, and transmedia, investigating the processes and actors behind the creation of internet-based content. Clusterduck has developed Meme Manifesto, a transmedia project that collectively explores the occult meanings and communicative potentials of memetic symbology. Clusterduck's works have been exhibited at KW Institute of Contemporary Art, Kunsthal Charlottenborg, Ars Electronica, and Villa Arson Nice, Transmediale, and others. Please, you can introduce yourselves.
Thank you. So should we introduce also each of us, or? Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Silvia. I come from Italy, and I'm part of Clusterduck.
I'm Noel.
I'm Francesca.
Yeah, I'm Tommaso.
And as already anticipated, we are Clusterduck, and today we will the talk will be divided in two sessions. So in the first section, we want to give an overview of what it means for us to work as a collective and what we learned in these years. It's almost 10 now that we have been doing this. And in the second part, we're going to talk more about our projects and practice. And after each session, there will be a short time for questions and to open up the discussion. So, as anticipated, a collective. Why a collective? I think the word has many connotations, and we are going to try to go through some of them. I mean, I'm not saying anything new, I think, also to students in a university, if I say that collectives are something that seems to hit a note in current times. There has been a spread of collectives. I mean, this is not a new phenomenon, of course, especially in the art world, but especially in the past 10 to 15 years, we have seen that there has been a resurgence of collective practices. Yeah, I think we can skip this. It was already said enough. So why did we start? And before we became a collective, actually, everything started with a project, and I think this is also a common experience for many collectives. In our case, this was a movie, actually. We came together to create a documentary, and Silvia maybe can tell something more about that and how it started.
So yeah, it was 2016, so Trump was just been elected, I think, if my memory is not wrong. No, yeah. So and, we had the impression that the internet was a mess, but also we were very young, and we, Francisca got in contact with many digital artists, for example, to the platform Postvision. All of us were kind of interested to the internet in different ways. We were coming to Transmediale, everything seems so new and interesting, and so since our media at the time was film, as most of them at the time, we thought, okay, let's try to do a documentary. We did a lot of interviews, and but the movie is not still out. Who's keeping these slides?
Yeah, I think.
What's happening?
Sorry, we have a small technical problem because the presentation we have here is not the same as that one over there. So, yeah, it wasn't updated in. I mean, it should be on the cloud, but as we know, the cloud is tricky. And yeah, that's okay. The right one.
So the situation was like, okay, we had this impression that with artificial intelligence, already in 2016, everything that we are going to post online would have become something that could have filled the data set of an intelligence of the future. And this was like one of the ideas behind the documentary. Then, of course, what happened is that it kind of happen. I mean, with artificial intelligence now, many data sets are composed from sheet posting, and this is why also they contain many bias. In the same times, we discovered that a lot of communities were creating their wikis and creating meanings of any sort behind it, and can you go? Okay, so and this could be something that introduce the thematics that we are talking about today. Imagine that we are in this very room, and we have to decide if we want to go to eat gelato, an ice cream all together, or a pizza. And when we started, we may have been experienced a situation in which, for example, there are 3 bots who would like to convince us to eat gelato because they love gelato, and they may be like 2 conspiracy theorists who may want to convince us to eat pizza because they like pizza. The situation in which we're in now is like that 50 of us is an LLM, and maybe they all want to eat burgers. So the numbers are these. This is how it changed. At the time, we still didn't know, but we maybe already had the impressions that with memes and with symbols that communities create, what is happening is that there is a game at play, a sort of what Wittgenstein would have called the infinite naming game. So basically we are all agreeing together on which meaning a certain symbol or meme has, and we are kind of discussing this infinitely on the internet. And so the situation in which we're in now is that in this discussion a lot of LLMs would also join, and this is why we maybe really need to agree with each other. And Noel, if you want to continue.
Yeah, the thing is, what we realize very fastly, even when you have a common intention and you come from a common background, working together is messy. It's hard, especially over a longer period of times. And collectives have this tendency of becoming this kind of organism that has an independent life from its members, and maybe it turns into something different from what each individual member thought in the beginning that it could be. So, okay, I was told this would happen, that the screen could become black. No, it's coming back. So we wanted to go on a more meta level in a certain sense beyond the intention of the documentary, and we tried to understand why did we start doing the documentary, for example. So if you go one slide further, we realized that there was, of course, the artistic intention of doing something creative, but there was also a political subtext in what we were doing. Exactly, political, because, and I think this is a need shared, I think, by many people, especially many people who found or joined collectives, that you just have this urge to do something about the mess that you see around you. And of course, the artistic intention, because we realize that the battle is a political one, but it's also a cultural one, which leads us to the next point. Yeah, this is a quote by Boris Groys, which kind of captures quite well something that we realized also as a digital art collective. Under the conditions of modernity, an artwork can be produced and brought to the public in 2 ways, either as a commodity or as a tool of political propaganda. And since 10 years ago, commodifying digital art was not as common or easy as it is now. I mean, it was already clear that the white cube people were trying ways to commodify it because they realized it would be the next thing, but still there were a lot of post-internet artists, and so the people that would be at Transmediale, for example, 10 years ago, who would came from a hacker background or so, they wouldn't make art for money. So it was clear for us that, yeah, what we were making had a political subtext, and it was political propaganda in a certain sense. So this lead us also to realizing that collective action, I mean, political action is always collective action, And collective action, as I already said, is messy because you have this contrast between individual desires and needs and aspirations and what this new collective organism that you're trying to form wants to do or needs to do in order to survive. So that's also the reason why many collectives have not so long lifespans, let's say, or there are many realities who call themselves this is also something we realized. Many collectives are actually composed of 2 people, for example, and there are a couple, but they call themselves collective, and then they collaborate maybe with many people. So yeah, this is also something that happens. But taking a step back again, why do we have this proliferation of collectives? I mean, we already mentioned some things. I think we can skip, yeah, these are just some of the first collectives that came in our mind when we were doing this, this slide. Some you might know, many are from Berlin actually, I think, from this group. Yeah, go one further, please. So yeah, this question we asked already, I think we can go one further. So exactly, this is an attempt to answer the questions, what are the reasons why there are so many collectives? So one reason is, of course, that we live in a digital age, so it's easier to collaborate, even between people who are not in the same place. This plays a role, and as we already said, we live in difficult times, we live in weird times, in hyper-complex times. So I think this is also something that plays a role. We realize that it's almost, it is impossible for an individual to find an answer to all the questions we see around us, and this forces us to collaborate with others to find a meaning to what we see around us. And this, of course, goes hand in hand with the fact that we are social animals, and we tend to collaborate despite attempts to convince us of other things. And yeah, this leads back to what was said, that we are in a cultural war. And let's start from this. So we will now try to go through these 4 steps and see what this meant for us as a collective and what it could mean for other people trying to go this way. So yeah, we are in an age of culture wars. This has even become more clear in the past 6 months than it was already in the past 10 years. And of course, art is at the forefront of this war. I mean, we also, as an art collective, many of us had doubts sometimes. I mean, you do these strange projects about weird things that nobody understands out of your bubble. And of course, you ask yourself, is what I'm doing here meaningful? Does it even make sense? And then you see how right-wing politicians, when they come into power, they try to limit funding to arts, they try to stop things in the artistic sector from happening, and I think this kind of confirms that, yeah, actually it matters and it should be taken seriously. And of course, we know that, I know you had a talk here about AI and tech fascism a few weeks ago, so I think this relates to that as well. And of course, historically, fascism has tried to label art that didn't subscribe to its agenda as degenerate, but we are seeing the same happening now, for example, with Trump. And there is also, this is, for example, I don't know how many people have seen it, a press release that was circulating in the past weeks about Curtis Yarvin, who is this kind of inspirator of J.D. Vance and many people in the Silicon Valley. And he's trying to hyperstition himself as curator of the Biennale, of the US pavilion at the Biennale next year. But this is actually fake news. He's trying to do that through fake news. So he's building movies with AI and doing this kind of fake news to make that happen. So art and politics, of course, relates to this complex role of the artist as a jester. The artist is very close to power. He has this privilege of saying certain things that maybe are not so easy for others to say. But we have also this aspect of the artist as a critic of technology. And maybe Silvia, you want to say something about this?
Yes, this for us was a reference, let's say, from the beginning, and maybe many of you share the same feeling, not that as artists related to digital technology, we are kind of called every time to know the technology we are using, and as Nam June Paik was doing with that little bot he did at the beginning of his career, we could choose to make technology ridiculous. We may choose, as Ito style was doing also at the beginning, to bring the medium to like the extreme while revealing what is going on. But we had the impression in the, let's say, late 2-3 years, maybe since the NFT bubble started, is that something else was happening when an artist, a digital artist, is relating to a technology, which is actually not criticizing the technology, but simply being an early adopter that is kind of included in a larger bubble or marketing venture capitalist project. And so sometimes, I mean, we have the impression that artists are presenting themselves as critique of the technology, but they are actually just jumping on the trend. And but so what is happening to the to us, to the creative class, to the artist who is not, you know, what's the name of it? Anish Kapoor? No, Refik Anadol. So we are not Refik Anadol. So what is happening to us? We are kind of brought in this current in which, I don't know, we thought that we are doing net art, that COVID happened, NFT happens, digital art is considered something else. We were doing transmedia projects, and now we are doing like little figurines, and they call it art. And then the bubble, the venture capitalist bubble move again, and now everybody is doing AI, and they are experimenting and criticizing what is happening with AI, but maybe even if you're criticizing, you're kinda creating discourse on it, and maybe many artists who thought that we're approaching AI in a critical sense, they find themselves in a festival who are sponsored by Samsung and Spotify, and you know, and at this OpenAI, and at the same time these brands are sponsoring weapons of mass destruction, because they need to research the datascape so that they create the war models who then will substitute us when AGI is coming. So like this is like a summary of the situation maybe, but yeah.
The loop has finished. Should we go on? What's the rule?
I think if you want to make a last point before we have a few questions, or if you want to
overshoot, actually, but yeah, I think we can stop here. But maybe just relating to what Silvia was saying, this would introduce the next point, which is, the artist is a gesture, and so on and so on. But of course, we realized quickly that artistic freedom ends where economic dependence starts. So when you start becoming successful as a collective, and maybe you start getting money from institutions or whatever, it always comes with conditions and strings attached, even when they pretend it's not like that. So yeah.
Right. Are there any questions so far? Nope. Okay.
I might have a question. If no one else has a question, I can wait. Oh, okay. There's a question.
If you think of a pie chart, how much would you say is your work is building the collective, and how much is creating art? Or would you say there's no separation? Like, how much care work is there?
Excellent question. Yes, please.
So a lot of the time, like most of the time, is trying to take care of each other. So the artwork is not really producing the art that we are doing, but managing the dynamics between ourselves. That's really like a big part of our work. And we even consider like to do a project that we are not on it now, but like we did group therapy after I think like 8 years of having been in the collective. We decided, okay, we need a person that help us like to manage the dynamic. And while doing the therapy, that was sort of I don't know, it could be a project, because I think that could be like really helpful for other people to understand the struggle of being part of a collective. It's a big, big struggle. It's not easy. It brings a lot of satisfaction, but the main work is the care work, is not the art.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that actually, and just one thing maybe is that what happens when you have a bigger project and you don't have time for the care work because the project is, or there may be more than one project even, and you're not all in the same place, so everything happens through calls and so on, and we know how digital media distorts communication and restricts empathy and so on, and so things can escalate quicker than in other medium, or when you see each other in the face. So yeah, then you realize when you don't do the daily routine care work that you immediately notice it because things start being more difficult in the collaboration.
Right. Are there any more questions?
Just a short question. Like, I would like to know, like, if you have also been confronted in having your freedom restricted as artists already, also between yourself, or also with institutions in general.
This is actually, it fits very well. I think we can skip to the next slide because this was, maybe some of you recognize this image. This is Nan Golding talking at Neue Nationalgalerie a few months ago when she had the opening of her exhibition. We put this image here because for us it's representative of what you were just mentioning, like when do you experience this pressure to conform and so on. And of course, after the October attacks in Israel, we know the situation in Germany. We had a big exhibition at KW, which didn't pressure us in any way, I want to say. But of course, you feel somehow this pressure, or you ask yourself if you should self-censor, or we realized this afterwards, analyzing what was happening and so on. We had a huge set of memes, of course, about the conflict, and we were unsure if showing them or not. And it was really a moment when the debate also, I mean, it's always heated, but in that moment around a cultural institution, it was especially heated. And so we decided not to show them. We put we put a request for the ceasefire in the artwork that we were showing. So we mentioned the conflict, but we decided not to show the memes because we were afraid that it would be too difficult to explain. Like a lot of the memes that we show in our work are actually triggering, xenophobic, racist, and it has always been an object of dispute if we should show them or not in our work. And we always maintained the position that in order to understand the enemy, you have to show what he's doing, you know. But I agree that this is not everybody's position. Some people might say you reinforce that message that has already enough visibility by showing it in your artwork. And I understand and respect the position, but we still think that it's important to show these things. But in that specific case, we had this ceasefire request, but we didn't show the memes. So this was a moment when we experienced this kind of pressure to conform to a certain expectation that the media and the public was having in that moment.
But yeah, I think I also want to add that there is the outside pressure, but also inside of the collective. As an individual, sometimes you have to agree to compromise because it's more important the health of the collective as an ecosystem instead of your ego. So especially at the beginning, in the first years, it was really, I think some of us felt I don't have enough freedom to express inside of my collective, but then we work in the direction of find the way to express ourselves, in a way that made us comfortable. But the ego is a thing, so yeah.
Right, I reckon we move on then with the presentation. All right.
Yeah, actually, I realized, we have only 15 minutes left, I think, or, yeah. So, we can stretch, okay. But still, we will skip very fastly through the next slides, I think. Yeah, this was just to show a few of the, I don't know if strategy is too big of a word, more tactics probably, that we found to retain a certain level of financial freedom. I'm not mentioning public financing, EU funds, I don't know, anything you can apply to and so on. We are just saying alternative ways of financing your work so that you maintain independence. So one thing is, of course, to have a kind of double life, and yeah,
That's what we have.
That's what we have actually, because we all work in marketing, for example, or jobs in somehow communication context or freelance projects or whatever. And this we realized is good for our artwork because our money doesn't come from there, so we can be more free. But of course, it's very risky for your mental and physical health. And also sometimes you feel schizophrenic because you're working on something completely different in your art world. Yeah. Then another thing is, of course, this is nothing new. Self-financing is great for community building, like doing Patreon or Substack or so on. But of course, it's a job in itself as well. It requires a lot of investment, community management. You have to be very transparent about it. And of course, you depend on third-party platforms. Merch is a classic, of course. Every collective does its T-shirts or merch at a certain point. Maybe Tommaso, you want to say something about, no? Later? Okay. Because what we did wasn't just merch, we tried to do this kind of project that is called the Bazaar. So we asked actually other people from our bubble, online bubble, to share their merch on the shop. And often the products were more like almost artworks because they were maybe not meant to be worn, or so instead of the other way around, instead of having the artwork becoming a product, it was more this attempt of having the product become an artwork. But yeah, of course, this is also its cons. It's a lot to manage, and you feel that you get in this pressure of commodifying what you're doing. Yeah, this was another point we mentioned at the beginning. Why are we founding collectives? We are social animals would be one other possible answer. And this, of course, goes against what is the mainstream notion of neoliberalism, through which we still live, although this may be debatable. But yeah, of course, one back, sorry. We know these two people and their affirmation that there is no such thing as society, but of course the past years have shown that actually, and now you can go skip, thank you, that we live in a society, to quote the meme. Go on. And the artist, again, plays an important role here, because in this hyper-individualized society, we see that the artist has kind of been used as a prototype for the precarized creative worker. So from the Bohemian artist, this myth of the free Promethean artist who creates his art and is a genius and so on. And so money is not important for him because his work is so rewarding and is so important that he shouldn't care about money. And this has been kind of co-opted by contemporary neoliberal ideology, and we see that creatives are kind of sold the same story often. You know, you should accept to be underpaid and to be precarious and to be a freelancer, not having protections and so on, because you're doing creative work, right? So you are having fun and so on. So you shouldn't have care about worker rights or stuff. These are a few, on the right side, a few books that talk about, I mean, Richard Florida in the negative sense of this idea of affirming the creative class as something great, and then Silvio Lorusso is more showing the negative side and the dark side I was describing. The question we try to answer for ourselves, how can we in this context create structures that can stand the test of time, and a few of the things we learned. Be consistent, so you should have, it helps a lot to have fixed days and times in which dedicated to the collective. Be organized, of course, shared structures, tools and processes, be transparent with each other, be patient, very important, and take care, as was mentioned before, is a big part of the work. But then there is also the...
skip to the practice, no?
Yeah, maybe we can skip to the practice, yeah, because otherwise we don't have enough time. So yeah, that was, let's skip to the practice.
So yeah, we are like 5 members of the collective. We co-founded the collective in 2016 as 7 members, and then the first year we lost 2, sadly. So we are 5 since then, and each of us has like, can you go to the next one? If each of us is like different interested, so we are coming from different internet bubble, from the post-internet net art. Some of us are really like active in the political scene in Italy. So each of us brings something to the collective, like kind of both in the sense of different interests and topics that we want to talk about, but also a different skill set. And that's kind of the reason why we are mainly working with Transmedia projects. So we have 4 big projects that are like internet fame. It was our first exhibition, and it was an exhibition and a party in real life and online, a catalog, a video, a lot of output out of it. And then we had Meme Manifesto and Meme Propaganda, and our biggest project that we are like focusing on since 2019 or something, yeah, is Meme Manifesto. I mean, it's already started. It's already started in 2018 with the book. It was like the beta version, but basically here you can see all the area of the project, and each of us sort of play a role in the different part of it, in a sense that some of us are like more on the conceptual part, and then we have like me and Thomas, we are like designers, so we bring the design aspect into our project. Then like Sylvia, Noel, and Rihanna, they are writing. So we found a way into building the Transmedia projects, in a sense like to have a little space inside of the big project to express ourselves. So yeah, a Meme Manifesto is like the biggest one. As I say, we started with a book with another collaborator of us, Jules Durand. So that was like the beta version for the Wrong Digital Biennale. Then there's like we had like the Just Fresh Dunk meme chat. It was like a secret chat on Telegram with very funny rules. And that was like the beginning of sort of the collective archive of memes. Then at some point, because we're working online, we don't have a studio, so our studio is kind of a Figma board, we needed to start to create a sense of the chaos of the archive. So what you are seeing here, like this is like the last exhibition that we did with the detective wall. Everything was on a Figma board before, and we organized it. It was like our online space. And from that we wrote, can you go on, the detective guide. Do you want to talk about it?
Yes, this was a
editorial project that we developed to, let's say, help everyone to untangle like this clusterfuck of work of art that we did, and that somehow was explaining all the different. You see, like here there are like 10 main panels that represented these 10 different, let's say, photographic historic moment of this of the meme phenomena, and yeah, this guide was like a small catalog, let's say, that was also somehow, as Francesca was saying, like that we always have this transmedia approach. The catalog was representing and it was represented by and connected with a website, which we call the iceberg, because it's also a reference to the meme, basically this iceberg that you can, the reference of that meme. And the website basically is a huge scroll where you can go deep into the madness, and it's a responsive website that basically allow us to. Yes, and then also there was this chatbot that I don't know if it's still running actually or not, but that helped us to create the archive through this Telegram chatbot. You want to speak about it?
Yeah, and then we collaborate with a friend of ours, DJ Detweiler, and basically he was doing kind of the same research that we are doing. We are like focusing on the visual aspect of the meme culture, and he was like doing the same with the sound. And we love DJ Detweiler, so we really like that's. I'm also, for us, it's really important to involve as more collaborative as possible. So he was in the chat group at the beginning, and then he developed the soundtrack of our website. And then the protocols, basically, because we learn this methodology, then we started kind of to teach to other people. So we did like a different workshop, and some friend of ours, they participated of the workshop, and then they build their own version of the detective world. You can see Nora Tafece, and the previous slide was Esben Olk. And
yeah, the loop is still not finished. So the idea here was to jump from talking about our practice to maybe opening the discussion and the practice about what we are currently researching in the meme panorama, and maybe later opening the discussion to you and share some insights. So we wanted to talk about brain rot, because brain rot is something, brain rot memes are something that changed certain categories in the meme landscape. We had the feeling at the moment. Yeah, I think we can skip this, because what... Yeah, and also our brain is rotting, of course, all the time after 10 years of memes. But the idea, why is brain rot important? Because this is an old meme about the meme ecosystem. You know, there used to be this meme a few years ago where the first person would be 4chan, and then you would have all the other platforms, and then you would have the brands at the bottom, you know, because the brands were always coming late on the memes and forcing them and so on. But what we noticed with brain rot actually is that the brands became super fast. We never saw something like this, and especially with a typology of memes that was used to be very niche, because surreal memes used to be really niche and not many people used to know about surreal memes. And instead, for example, with Tung Tung Sahur, which is one of the Italian brain rot memes, of course, the community plays around with it a little bit. So, for example, you have this beautiful meme that references futurism, Italian futurism, but then immediately you have the brands jumping on the bandwagon and starting doing memes after 1 week, after 2 weeks. So we had never seen something like this. So here our point would be that maybe this opens really a new phase in meme history. And yeah, maybe Silvia, you can add something to that.
Yeah, that is one of the tables we did in the detective wall that you were seeing before. Is talking about how collective narratives are created. So the things that we were saying at the beginning, how people agree with each other in building meaning together. This was happening for surreal memes back then, and a lot of these memes are created from young adults who are forming their political conscience, and it's actually, if you, Tommy, can go. So in our maybe first or second project that was called Meme Propaganda, like the title of the talk today, we were exploring this. So how can we create a mascot which is expressing other feeling instead of what is Pepe the Frog expressing in times like when Trump was elected. And the funny thing is that something is happening in a very similar way with brain rot as well. So if there will always be the one who's creating Bombardiro Crocodilo, but others are gonna create Tralalero Tralala or Albero Stupido, and so the kind of pantheon of meanings will evolve, and we are gonna continue even in times of brain rotting and heavy conditioning from algorithms and in every platforms that kind of try to divide us. We are gonna continue this infinite language game that we do online to kind of understand what is going on, which is a clusterfuck again.
Are you already there?
Okay, so now we would like to open the space for discussion, and I'd like to kick that off with a question or two to all of the speakers, and then we'll take questions for the audience. You can also ask questions to each other if you like, but I'm sure you do that a lot anyway. But I would like to ask what, for you as an art collective, is the meaning of taking the memes kind of out of their natural context and treating them as an art object of sorts, or showing them in an art institution, because perhaps memes, they have this spontaneous character, and in this act you kind of put them in a different context. I would be very interested to hear how you feel about that and what function that has for you. And then the other question I have is, I was wondering throughout your talk how you feel about the internet today in comparison to what it was perhaps designed to be in the initial idea, and how maybe it fulfills that vision, or how it falls short, and how memes fit into all that. Thanks.
So for the first question, I think when we started, there was not real intention to create an art object. So when we started with Meme Propaganda and Meme Manifesto, it was more about trying to do something together. It was more about the act of creating the participatory project, and then Meme Manifesto and the detective world, that is sort of a big artwork, and that was not, we didn't really thought about, okay, we're gonna do this. It was more like a consequence of the fact that we were trying to make sense of the chaos and organizing the meme and our archives, and then we started to see the connection, and we started to go a bit detective crazy kind of vibe, and then we decided to print it because there was this feeling of we cannot lose the memes. as such an ephemeral content. Like if you stay in a digital file, I don't know, we wanted to print it because we wanted to kind of own it and feel it.
Yeah, and also, okay, like 10 years, like when we started was different, everything was different, no? So like there were very few people talking about these topics at the universities. It was very rare. People were talking about why wouldn't we do internet study course or the meme course, and it was a very small community, and we kinda get in contact with maybe like, I don't know, most of them. There was, I don't know, the Philosophers Meme, another group in US, then there were some scholars talking about it and doing some field research like observatory participation of groups like Anonymous and trolls or whatever. So it was maybe a different environment. Now we wouldn't have done it like that, I think. No, it was like figuring it out while everyone else was figuring it out, and also in this the network played a huge role in trying to figure it out together.
And for the second question, I can answer. I don't think we have a collective answer to that question. I can speak for myself. I'm addicted to the internet, so as most of us, I guess, but I don't like the internet how it is today. I'm very nostalgic from like GeoCities. Like, I think the best place on the internet is the Internet Archive. Like, I don't know, Arena is a nice place as well. I think there's like, but it's very fucked up, the internet today. So we are still on it. We are still, like, for example, like the brain rot, like we are still like saving, sending, like collecting everything because we are in this loop, but we miss the old days. I guess.
I have a very weird hope about it. Like in the past days, I was developing this, talking also with Kunsthal Charlottenborg, which he's a friend of us, an artist, that all the mainstream internet is now at risk because LLMs will kind of occupy it, so we will not have the possibility to talk anymore in these spaces. But this also kind of give me hope because what LLM cannot destroy are the little groups on Mastodon or Discourse, or so maybe we are gonna, as the Dark Forest collective say, we are gonna retire in these spaces, and it's gonna be a bit ugly because, for example, we are losing Reddit, and we were losing the forum since like now maybe 10 years. But still, I don't know, I see also something positive in it.
Very much. Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, you're close to me.
A very quick question, actually. Out of all places, why did this big wave of brain rot memes came out of Italy? Or like, what's your explanation?
I think because the Italian language is so... It sounds stupid. I mean, trallallero, trallala, this kind of is kind of like this lullaby kind of vibe for kids that, like, you heard it like one time and it's stuck into your. I don't know. We checked also German brain rot, but I don't. I mean, German is not my favorite language because it's so hard. But I cannot remember one German brain rot, and with Italian brain rot I think it's more easy because you can always, there is a meme that said that you can always make fun of Italian accent. It's not racist, so I think brain rot is sort of the consequence of it. Like, nobody gonna get mad because we're making fun of Italian accent. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually wrote an article about this 2 or 3 years ago on Mischief magazine about Italian soft power on the internet. Like, why is it a thing also? And of course, it relates to what Francesca was saying, so that I think Italians also knowingly accept that certain stereotypes about the country are reinforced. So this dolce vita stereotype, for example, because it's a form of soft power of selling the country, of course, and selling certain products and lifestyle and so on.
Espresso macchiato happened the same year, so maybe.
I have another question. Like, from your perspective, what do you think? Like a meme, what characteristic does a meme has to have in order to go like viral or get iconic? Whether there is like some kind of rules where you say like, okay, this meme went viral because it has all these kind of categories checked or something.
It's changing a lot with times, like UFO, no? UFO, and when in the 20s had a different look from UFO now. And with memes it's the same, they follow technology, they follow the easiest thing to make, or they follow the platform that everybody is using. For example, we are now since maybe 2 or 3 years in the meme videos eras because of TikTok. So yeah.
But also has to, like, the easy question, I think, the easy answer is like, has to be relatable. You need to relate somehow with the joke, and the most viral one are the one that like you can relate. So we have a big one of the layer of the detective wall is just about relatable memes, and then you can see how like the relatable memes are shifting into the more like surreal and like deep fried meme, but still with a sort of still has to be relatable to the user in order to share it.
Any more questions?
I have a question regarding about NFTs, maybe 2 questions. The first one is, in general, what's your takeaway on NFTs, and if you think NFTs actually solves some of the most important problems existing in the art space? And then the second question is, when artists decided to think about to create NFTs on top of blockchains, will you consider, what are some of the criteria that you will consider? Because blockchains are largely like the protocol and social and social communities, and on top of that, and in terms of protocol, not all the protocols are like equally decentralized. Some are way more decentralized, and some are more centralized. And each blockchain have their own culture on top of that. So just curious to hear your takeaway.
So, like in 2013, bitcoins were arriving in Berlin. No, there was this Grefestrasse street when this guy had convinced all the shoppers to accept bitcoins to. And in that shop, it was called Room 776, maybe, I don't remember. You could meet a lot of people who were just starting Bitcoins as an open source project, and everything looked like a dream. And there, I even met this guy that was theorizing, this was 2013, that you could create, you could use blockchain to play Magic and actually collect cards like Magic, because he was a fan of Magic the Gathering, into the digital space. And this was the start of NFT, no? If you think about it. But then, when NFT had one spike, a lot, like nobody realized that. It was like around 2017 when people who actually knew the technology started to do that. And then was quite logic to me, we didn't talk at the moment about the climate problems, all the expense in carbon footprint that the blockchain has. But then, when it happened again in 2020, so during the lockdown, and it had all another aspect. The agents who were promoting it were different, and this is something very important. I think we can talk about the blockchain as a distributed, democratic, and technology that can create project with no profit. You can use it for voting, etc. But then you have to look who is using it. And for example, there was a nice talk I was joining with Bruce Sterling, and he was showing who was backing Elon Musk in the Twitter acquisition, and they were all part of the crypto bro system, and they were the same pushing the NFT wave during that time, because they couldn't invest in anything else, because all the artists and all the people who actually buy things were at home during the lockdown. So you can see it from many different sizes, but then we clustered, like for example, we decided not to join the NFT art, even if of course we agree and kind of support artists who decided to join it. Like it's not the artist who should be feel responsible for something which is way over them. So there are some little projects also which are interesting with NFT and still use this the technology, the blockchain, to foster a collaboration. But yeah, long story.
Any other questions? I think you were first.
Yeah, so my question is, I would, jumping into your first question of like, how did the internet change? I mean, I agree, it's not what it used to be. I would say, though, my interpretation of, seeing these memes in your presentation, but also in my day-to-day life, I feel like that's one original quality of the internet that still is there, that somehow the internet makes this collective subconscious thing bubble up and become a thing. And without the internet, it wouldn't be possible. And I'm curious about your knowledge from your research. Who are the people that create these memes? How do you track what makes them go viral? Is this even trackable or understandable, or is it kind of like weird, constantly changing collective thought forms that have no real authorship and completely random of how these come about and become big?
There was a moment, kind of like this Insta wave, like more like with memes with authorship, like with a very precise style, like big account, but also I don't know. I think like the most successful pages are the ones that are like not focusing on authorships. So like the meme lords, and we had like a moment at the beginning that we talk with them, and they're like really crazy people. So I think like the fun comes, but I don't know now, because I think now a lot of kids, they have like they are so good into creating content, they are so fast with the eye. For example, the Italian brain rot, I think those are like all like kids. They're really good like to create a bunch, like, it's completely different from what is happening on TikTok. Is completely different compared to Reddit on Instagram. But yeah, I think the real one, the best one are the memes law, the one that want to stay anonymous, and they go viral. They have a formula, I don't know.
Just one thing about tracking, because you mentioned tracking. Actually, something we realized in our research is that all these things are happening on platforms For example, Facebook doesn't share the data. There are projects where Facebook shares the data with a few chosen universities and stuff like that, but it's almost it's a black box actually. You know, you have it's more an ethnologically. I mean, you could track it technologically, of course, but in practice you can't, because it's all opaque black boxes where these things happen. So what you do is ethnological work. You kind of go in the groups and talk with the people and observe and do this kind of things.
Thank you for the presentation. As we sensed from this presentation that we are already speaking of 8 years of your practice, and of internet culture we can speak almost of a few decades. And of course, by nature, your practice is sensing what's going on. It's like a seismic graph of cultural trends. And while on the one hand, you are speaking of, we were mentioning the Internet Archive, on the other hand, it's at the same time some kind of a, let's call it trend forecasting. And there, I was wondering, to what degree are you consciously working with this, and how do you relate in regards to this practice and terminology like forecasting as such? Does it because it used to be also have meanings through certain groups, and I wonder how you position yourself within this idea of seeing what might be the next, or is it already like hard enough to see what's going on right now? So maybe like
in the past few weeks, like, I don't know, you guys, I often have the impression that it's gonna arrive the time in which we are kinda passed by technology. For example, we were talking about the fact that Black Mirror, the series, is already kinda obsolete and it was surpassed by the realities, which is sometimes incredibly disorienting. When we started Clusterduck, we actually were talking a lot about trends, also because in our, what we used to call daily job, we have to do, we work in marketing, most of us, almost all of us. So we kind of had to train this perception, but also what you do, for example, Francesca was doing this a lot. We were talking about pattern recognition and the fact that you kind of become like, you have this tendency of recognizing people who are following trend and start to group images, and you're not watching one image per time, you are watching a lot of images. When you see one, you see the others, you kind of connect that in an apophenic way, which is also similar to what we did with the detective wall as well. So yeah, we are conscious that we are doing it, but almost like as if, like, it's, I don't know.
We are not capitalizing it.
Yeah.
So we are not
yeah,
really
that's
capitalizing.
True.
Like
it's
we
more
like,
studying it. I don't know.
I think like all of us, we have it, and also because we are working like as like in marketing, we get asked sometimes like to bring it to the mainstream sort of, but yeah, we are not capitalizing it. It's not our intention to do that.
I just wanted to add one thing, because I mentioned before AI fascism, tech fascism, and I know you had Tante here talk a few weeks ago, and I saw his talk, and he was mentioning this thing that the main difference between traditional fascism and tech fascism is that while traditional fascism wants to bring back a mythical past, tech fascism is all about the future. So they say, if you don't let us do our thing, this beautiful future won't come along. And I think that was really an eye-opener for me. So I think future trends and so on, it's really, that's the battleground at the moment. Both the past and the future, it's kind of this temporal battle about meanings and where we are going that we are having at the moment and that we are fighting. So I think this is really a crucial topic, actually.
We're at the end of our loop, but if someone has one last question. Okay.
Thank you. It was nice to see like meme as like unified form as a communication like meaning. But my question would be very short. If you're also creating memes, and if so, how are you doing this like in a collective way? Yeah.
We are not creating meme in a classical sense of like sentence and image, but our last artwork it's called Deep Fried Feelings, and we focus on the technique of frying memes. So in a way, we create some memes, but it's a very so it's not fun meme or something. Like it's more about the technique, and then we print it on like a huge art paper. We frame it. It's the first time that we have like an artwork that we made. Like it's not. Like, I mean, that is not the research, like the archive, but a physical object. But yeah, we have this chart, just French duck meme, and that was sort of this experiment to communicate only with memes. So in that context of the chart, we created some meme to answer, because the point was like, yeah, answering to each other without any emojis, sentence, whatever, just with memes. So we roast each other and we create meme, but they stayed into this like safe space. We are not creating memes that go viral. We are not that fun.
Okay, if that's everything, then I would like to thank all listeners here and online in the stream, and especially today's guests, Clusterduck Collective. We'd also like to thank the team for making this possible, from streaming to setup to organization. Thank you, everyone. And this was the last loops of the semester, sadly, but we will see each other at the UDK Rundgang in Medienhaus and at the main building. And for now, we invite you all to continue the conversation at the bar. Thank you.